So today is the 22nd, and again, I know you all have seen this before, but every time we have someone new, I present this. So this group is over here to study Allan Kardec's books. Allan Kardec wrote 5 of them, and the first one we are studying, the study is the Spirit's book, and we follow, okay, and we follow the Kardecpedia, the website called Kardecpedia. Then you can access the Spirit's books over there. It's free of charge, and the way that we do, we read this book every week, every Saturday. So we make sure that we are on the same page, reading from the same version. There are other versions out there. And we started with the book number 3, Moral Laws. And with that, I would like to talk about this a little bit. And it's funny that Giles started with his question, because this week I was reading something else. And when I was talking to somebody about the responsibility of, knowledge, and when I saw this quote from Luke that says, to whom much is given, much is required. So with great spiritual knowledge comes great responsibility. And it's funny that you asked this question, Giles, because today I've seen so many people, they wanted to say something, they wanted to talk about something, not realizing all the consequences, all the responsibility that it comes with whatever opinion, with whatever message we are spreading out there. So again, we need to be very careful. We need to be very restrict in terms of what kind of criteria we are using, what kind of information, and how reliable that information is, because certainly it comes with a great responsibility. Yes, Leda, please go ahead. You have a comment?
Yeah, I'd like to comment. If I'm repeating what you said, I ask you to forgive me. Can you hear me well?
Yes.
Okay. Giles said about truth being the truth being true in all ages, in all moments, and he gave an example about slavery, right? And I'd like to say that because the law says something is legal, it doesn't mean it's right. Because we have civil laws. I don't know if Luis said anything about this, but we have civil laws and we have God's laws. And so in slavery, the spirits, they give us an example in one of Chico Xavier's books, Nosso Lar, the first book. In English, I forgot the name of the movie, yeah, but the movie is the same of the book. And
Astral City.
Astral City, yeah. So in this book, he gives an example of a lady who dies in the age of slavery, and she was a very powerful woman with a lot of slaves, and she used the power that she had to oppress the slaves that she had, and she was in the spiritual plane suffering from all that bad acts, all that anger that she put on. Legally, she had the right to do that. But spiritually, when she died, she suffered from more than 50 years in the spiritual plane, with the consequences of acting like that towards her slaves. So what I mean is the truth is the gospel, the truth being kind to one another. This comes from the age of the Christ, or even before that. That's the truth, and that's always been the truth. But if the law says differently, it's because the human law hasn't evolved yet to be at the same level as the spiritual law. I don't know if you could understand, but that's the example that's in the book Astral City, one of the examples regarding slavery.
Thank you, Leda. Very good comment. Luis.
Yeah, this is something very interesting too, because remember Moses, right? And Moses received mediumistically the 10 commandments. Well, the 10 commandments, he came to the conclusion that the people were so barbarians, so much of a barbarians, that they only the 10 commandments wouldn't hold them back, right? Refrain them from wrongdoings. So he decided to write other civil laws with his own hands, right? So that's why the difference between the 10 commandments and the Mosaic laws. And the problem, one of the problems of Christians nowadays, that as they want to obey blindly the Old Testament, here in Brazil, for example, many people are getting into troubles with the police because they want to follow the Old Testament laws. Okay, if my son, he stole something, I'll cut his hand off, right? So because the civil laws go changing in time, really, but the moral, the higher laws are there, right? Untouchable. And then that's the that's the point. We cannot make that mistake, really. Very important stuff for us to talk about, indeed.
Yeah, thank you, Luis.
I think it's worth adding at this point that we really have the two rules which can be taken out of the Bible as being true, not with respecting anything else, which is to love God and love and treat your neighbor as yourself. And this, I think, was promulgated by the Buddha 2000 or 1000 BC. No, it might have been 600 BC. So it's not exactly news 2000 years ago. And yes, this carries serious moral precepts. Because if you don't treat people, your friends and neighbors, like yourself, well, then you're going to pay for it. That's what karma is for. And in fact, if you love them and do nice things to them, well, that's what karma's for as well. You get nice presents in the afterlife.
That's it. Yeah.
Yep. Yep. All right.
Yeah, many people said this. What the spirits say is that this kind of knowledge has been, coming from the spirit realms since we came to reason. So hundreds of thousands of years we've been getting to, in contact with this kind of knowledge. The problem is we are a little bit stubborn. That's a little bit. Yeah.
We learn
just a little bit
slow
stubborn.
pace.
Yeah.
I wonder. All right, so last time we stopped at the question 646. Is the merit of good measured by the conditions under which that action has been committed? In other words, are there different degrees of merit in doing right? And the question is, the answer is, the merit of good depends on difficulty entailed. There will be no merit in doing right without self-discipline and effort. God takes more notice of poor individuals who share their only piece of bread than of the rich who give only what is superfluous to them. Jesus told you this in his parable of the widow's mite.
Right.
Yes. Yeah, and I recall that Hyacinth, she mentioned her friend who is a rich person, but very conscious one. And so with that, I will go ahead and start sharing the book with the next question. And okay, so okay, so I'm lost now. Okay, yeah, there you go. So division of natural law. Can God's law be summed up in the rule taught by Jesus that exhorts us to love our neighbors? Comments?
That what was to love our neighbor? That
To love our neighbor. Gonna read the question again. So Luis, would you please, since you are the first one I can see on my screen?
No, Anna, you don't have to read it again. It's just that it's an incomplete statement because it says love your neighbor instead of treat your neighbor as you would treat yourself. And so, do you love yourself? Then that's what you should treat your neighbor as. I think it's a bit difficult wording here.
Huh.
I think that you can leave it as love God and love your neighbor, because when they asked Jesus, "Who is my neighbor?" he told them the parable of the Good Samaritan, and that was a total stranger who needed compassion.
Mhm. Mhm.
Yeah. That's it. I think it's it's a matter of words, right, guys? Once more, words are difficult. Yes, John's getting an expert in this stuff. Yeah, become
Yes.
an expert in of words. Okay, but that the question, I think it's this: so if we can, for example, we can love. Some people nowadays say if you cannot love the other of your neighbor if you don't love yourself. But
Precisely.
sometimes, yes, precisely. But I think sometimes some people I've noticed they are getting this argument to get around the stuff and living a very selfish life. Understand?
Yes.
So we can run away in any way. Oh no, I'm just loving myself first, right? I chose the next 200 years to do that. Maybe after 200 years, I'll try to think about other people. Yes, that's. But
Yeah.
we use everything to get
Yeah,
away from it. Yeah.
The trouble is we fool ourselves, and
That's
we
it.
fool only ourselves.
Mhm.
Exactly.
Mhm. That's why the
Precisely.
spirit, yeah, the spiritual manual, he says that in the first 2000 years, for example, the teachings of Christ just didn't go over the first stage. The next stage is self-knowledge. Without self-knowledge, there is no evolution, right? People we have to know that. And he said that the third millennium will be responsible for doing that through suffering to humanity, unfortunately. Okay, Una.
Una, please.
Hi, thanks, guys. I'm on this question. Like, there's more to it than just your neighbor, I think. Isn't there, like, it's not just enough to to be kind to your neighbor, but there's also all the natural world around us, like the
Exactly.
environment that we live in. Does that
Mhm.
come under this, or like, do people think that God's law also applies to like effectively loving your neighbor, as in your environment and stuff as well?
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you. Yeah. Good point. I like this approach. You know, we are all part of a single creation, right? So we need to
And our neighbor
respect.
lives in an environment, right? As if you are bad to the
Exactly.
environment, you're damaging your neighbor's lives, right?
Yeah.
To
But-
yeah.
Your neighbor is not the guy who lives next door.
Yes.
Mhm.
Yeah. Not only. Yes. Yeah. And when I think about that, and when I think about loving your neighbor and loving the other one, I think there is a step, at least in my case, there is a step before then, and that step is the non-judgment. I need to, this is something that I need to exercise, for example. So here we are living in this pandemic situation, and despite all the chaos, we still have people that dare to manipulate information, to manipulate other people, to take advantage of the situation in their own benefit. So how not to judge this person and yet to tolerate that this person and accept that this person is, you know, okay, I'm so sorry, but you're making mistakes, but you know, it is your choice, but not judge that person, not even say love, but not judge. So it is hard. It is quite a hard exercise to do, at least in my case.
Yeah. There's a very common word in Portuguese. It's not so common in English. So discernment, right?
Mhm.
Which is different from judgment. So we can discern, we can see the evil, because many people that are spiritualists and religious, they say, no, 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 I cannot see any evil in anybody. No, it's not like that. Otherwise, you can get into, fall into very dangerous trap. Okay, Art.
Art, you want to say something?
No.
Okay. So,
I'm typing something in the chat.
ah, right. Okay.
Yeah,
Yeah. Yes.
but with
That's it.
discernment,
Mhm.
you very often see through the lies and deception, and that is all around us,
Mhm.
including those whom we passionately believe to be correct.
Yes. Wow. Yes.
Yes.
So when
Okay,
we believe something
Yeah.
and somebody else has another thing, then we judge that person.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Claudia, you have something to say?
Yes, I was trying to unmute. For me, it's very important to make a distinction between the person and the behavior, the person and the action. In other words, I can love the person as, you know, God's creation and not accept the behavior, not accept the
Exactly.
action. I can differentiate between those two. The other thing was something I read last week, and it's coming up again for this, is for us to think about how we speak to God, and to realize that when we're speaking to others, we're speaking to God's creation. In other words, do we speak to others the way we would speak to God?
Mhm.
And sometimes it's difficult, and I have to stop myself
Yeah.
because it might be somebody spreading misinformation, or
Mhm.
there's a whole segment of religion, at least in the United States, where they truly believe that the way they worship God, and that they're special, and that therefore they should have more money than other people. They should have special privileges that, and I can't remember what the distinct, it's a Protestant religion, but examples of that are that big church in Texas, what Joel Osteen. In other words, they can drive around in Jaguars and live in 10,000 square foot houses, and because God's rewarding them. And I have difficulty with that because I don't believe they're any more special than the guy who's panhandling out here on the corner. We're all equal in the eyes of God in terms of, you know, being his creation and his children. And so it's on me to go, okay, I love that person, I don't love that behavior.
Absolutely. Yes.
Well, Gloria, we're talking about what's it called? Prosperity religion. And this is it. So that I need a private jet so that I can do have my preaching engagements, because commercial jets don't get me where I want to go. And he gets it, or she gets it.
Mhm.
Thank you for the term. I couldn't think of it. You're right. I think it's it's prosperity. Yes.
Prosperity theology,
Yeah.
yes.
They feel like they're rewarded because they're extra good in God's eyes or something. And
Exactly.
I just, oh,
God
Well,
is prospering them. Yes.
yeah. Anyway, yeah.
I
And I
think
have
it's
to
worth,
just say it again here, where I
Hyacinth.
heard Benny Hinn say, I want my reward now. I want my wealth now to enjoy
Yeah.
it. And I thought, oh boy.
Oh boy.
Yeah,
Oh
the
boy,
puerile.
yeah.
It's
Look,
very childish behavior in
it's
terms
worth,
of religion.
it's
yeah.
really is worth reminding that there are tourist locations in the afterlife, which is churches full of perfectly good people that are totally misguided.
Yes.
Yeah.
And they use them as set examples. And when you want to do tourism, they bring you to one of these churches, and there they all are, sitting there, thinking, "Oh, we haven't died yet because there's been no last judgment," and whatever their fundamentalist nonsense is. Now, these are good people. These are not harsh, thieving, deceptive people. They won't be there. The good people will be there. Anyway, something I wanted to say anyway before, because we're wasting too much time on this. There's most people are good on the planet. And the whole point of the challenges that we have on Earth is that everybody's mixed up. There are some very selfish people and there are good people, and the good people outweigh the selfish people. Laughter and love wins big time, left, right, and center. And if we remember that, then we can move on to other minutiae. That's why incarnations on the earth are so tricky and challenging because of these difficult, different people. And nothing, despite what Gloria says about loving somebody, when you run into some selfish, lying, thieving, murderous person, stand back, get well away. You're not doing yourself or them any favors by hanging around and getting into an argument with them.
Yeah, we're going to study in the future presumptuous
Yes.
faith, which is something very important for us to understand, that the mistakes of being religious, right?
Yeah.
The presumptuous faith. Right? It's because it's very, very easy, people, even for people who study the truths, right? You can be vain, you can be, presumptuous very easily if you are not very careful. Right? Oh, I know everything. I know that people here are ignorant. I'm better than every. So it's a very tricky situation you cannot get into, of course.
They are so misguided.
Exactly. Yeah, and we see that everywhere, not only.
Exactly.
I mean,
Brazil is the
Anyway.
same, right? It's
Yeah.
spread all over the country, right?
Okay, so Gloria, you were the first one in my screen over here. Would you please read the answer for us?
yes. Surely, this maxim contains all the duties that you hold with regard to one another, but its various applications must be shown, or humankind will continue to neglect them, as they currently do. Also, natural law covers all the circumstances of life, and the rule you have cited is only one part of it. Humans need specific directions. General guidelines are too vague and leave too many doors open to human interpretation.
Wow, that's
And everybody's interpretation is the correct one. I've got the truth. You don't know anything.
Presumptuous faith.
Yeah,
That
exactly.
happens daily.
That's it. And it's important to get to know this, people, because look, many people say, why do the spirits write so many things about something like charity? Everybody knows charity is good, but no, it's not that point. I remember Allan Kardec saying something that even the spiritists have great difficulty understanding here in my country, in my opinion, this is personal, about charity. He said, there are two kinds of charity, for example. It's the beneficent charity, which means material resources. You need to have money, right? And benevolent charity. The second one is the spiritist charity per excellence, because if you are benevolent, you'll end up being beneficent. But if you are just beneficent, you can be greedy, racist, right, full of prejudice, and still going to church and do your charity there. And that's not so valuable in the afterlife, right? In the afterlife, your intention, your connection with the desire of really helping others will be of much help to you. Not that the beneficent charities, you know, to be sneezed at. No, great. But many times we spend hundreds of years doing physical charity, beneficent charity, but you don't get into the benevolent charity, which is, as I read at first here today, our inner intention, our change in the heart, right? This is going to be very important for our development in the spiritual realms.
The heart is where it is.
Yeah,
Yes.
very nice comment, Luis, because if you do only the beneficent, it means that you're being guided by the materialism only, and this is not the point, right? So,
Yes. Gloria?
Yeah.
Gloria, you want to say something? You raise your hand? No? Okay.
I'd like to add one more point because I think this is so important. In the book of Acts in the New Testament, there was a problem there because in the first church of Christianity in Jerusalem, the people, they were having a reach out service to help the widows of Israel. But there was a complaint, right? People started complaining because the widows from the diaspora, right? Widows from Jewish people that were from abroad, were receiving less food than the widows from Israel, right? So there was an ethical problem there. What did the apostles do? They said, we cannot stop speaking about Christ's doctrine. This was something that called my attention. We cannot stop speaking about this doctrine. So you're gonna choose 7 men of spirit and truth and prayer to serve the tables. Why did I do this study? Because I was setting up a soup for poor people here in Brazil, in my town. And I discovered one of the biggest problems through UNESCO, United Nations, one of the biggest problems of voluntary work was the lack of ethics in the work. This was exactly the same problem that was happening in Jerusalem in the Acts. And the apostle said, look, you choose the people that are wise, that know a lot, and are very fair guys. And after they put their hands on their heads to feel spiritually if they were the right ones to be chosen to serve the tables. What does that mean? Charity, okay, beneficial or beneficent charity is welcome, but without benevolent charity, things will go into the same thing that we have already seen, right, in history. Okay, you now go on.
Yeah, it's like, I mean, you can write a check for whatever amount of money you want, but how valuable is that check if the organization that made that money continues to pay people below the minimum wage or continues to poison the water supply or whatever of the people in the area that it's located in or whatever like that? It's, you can write a check for whatever amount of money you want, but if the behavior behind it isn't up to scratch, then how worthwhile is it, you know?
Yes, I think I got what you say. I know, but I remember once a guy, he was very controversial here in my town. He said he was attacking spiritists to say, oh, you spirits are very funny, right? You spend your whole life working in banks, being bankers and so on and so forth. But at the end of your lives, you set up a soup and try to distribute, right, some little parts of your profits to the poor, right? Well, actually, he was not saying something that is completely a lie, right? It happens, but at least it's a beginning. So I see.
I see.
sometimes people do this, give money and sort of set up foundations to ease their conscience. That's one thing. And Una, that people are, doing these things and very unethical, and they're poisoning the water, and they won't pay minimum wage when they are super wealthy. But they live with themselves. Only later on they will find, I didn't get it right. Yep. And the other thing I want to say, Louis, one of those people chosen to look after those widows was Saint Stephen. Mm-hmm. And I have a special relationship with him, as does Kim. Yeah. He was one of those chosen to look after the widows.
That's
Have you seen the book that Chico Xavier considers the best book he's ever channeled, Paul and Stephen?
Mm-hmm.
Give it a try. That? Yeah, give it a go. Beautiful book.
Is that already translated?
Yes, in English, into English. Yes.
Is in English? Okay. Oh, awesome. Yeah. Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah, it's a very nice book. Yeah. Hi, Saint-Phil, would you please read the next question then? The next one. 648.
What do you think of the division of natural law into 10
parts?
Adoration, labor, reproduction, preservation, destruction, society, liberty, and the law of justice, love, and charity.
What do you think, guys?
Division of natural law.
Into 10 parts: law of adoration, labor, reproduction, preservation, destruction, society, progress, equality, liberty, and the law of justice. I think Giles, hey, Giles.
Well, we've covered that already in our conversation that 2,000 years ago, the law of Moses was fair enough at the time. For all we know, it was a century or two in advance of its time. However, times change, and the law as made by humans, which is what presumably they're talking about, law in 10 parts, one size does not fit all. And that's what we've got a jury for, and that's what we've got judges for. And they are supposed to be wise and sane and take into account different circumstances. That's what they're supposed to do.
Supposed to.
Yeah. Any other, thank you, Giles. Any other comments, folks, before we go to the answer? So, Luis, you were the first one over here.
All right.
Would you please read the
answer? The division of God's law into 10 parts comes from Moses and covers all the circumstances of life, which is the essential point. You may adopt it without it being unconditional, with being unconditional, just like any of the other various classification systems, which depend on the perspective or situation in question. The last law is the most important because it includes all the others. By observing this law, humankind can advance the most quickly in the spiritual life. And that's the point. People think this thing of advancing the most quickly is all about the doctrine of Jesus Christ, for example. These guys came to say to us, you don't need to suffer so much for so long. So it depends on you, right? If you want to, okay, let's linger. Well, wow, so we will suffer a lot, but if you want to suffer less in a shorter period of time, just try and follow it. Man.
Gloria. Thank you, Luis.
Yeah, my question is, it says the last law is the most important because it includes all the other. Do they mean charity? Is that the last?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Love and
Yeah.
charity, yes.
Yes.
Yeah. Yes.
According to
Love and
Paul,
charity.
he equates charity with love.
Yep.
There's something in passing here about what Louis said, where people want to continue to do what they're doing in these incarnations here. I read somewhere in some automatic writing, which I have I hold great faith in, that there's a town in Philadelphia of less than 5,000 population, where people keep reincarnating back into that town. And this has been going on for some centuries and looks like it's going to continue for a while. And this is, well, it's just one size does not fit all. That's all. That's most amazing that people would want to do that, but they are doing it with knowledge and foreknowledge of what they're doing, and they want to do it.
Yes.
So, okay.
The see,
Yes.
Giles, exactly this tackles the points of the criterion we were talking about. Once
Mhm.
Allan Kardec got to know that the priest, the Catholic priest that had passed away, he was a very hard opponent to Spiritism in France, Kardec decided to summon that spirit, to evoke. And the spirit came through a medium. And the Kardec said, well, what now, priest? What do you think about the communications with the dead? They say, well, of course, the priest answered, of course, I cannot deny that, but I still deny your doctrine. Because I am a special person, I want to be born into special families at special social levels, and your doctrine destroys all that.
He wanted to be priest again.
He wanted to be priest again.
To be-
Yeah. See? That's it.
I bet he had a huge surprise. Claudia, you had your hand raised. No? Okay. So, all right. So, as we
Let me add one
Okay.
more thing, which we keep forgetting about. It's that the Earth has got spectacularly unusual and unpleasant challenges for those who incarnate on it. Now, for some reason, people like this, and there's a long waiting list to get an incarnation on Earth, whereas there are plenty of other places to incarnate which are civilized, and you don't have the challenges that are available on Earth. We call them aliens, of course, and there's heavier ones and lighter ones and nicer ones and not so nice ones, but nothing is as nasty as the Earth, which is why we all want to incarnate here. Because if you can get through some incarnations on Earth, you have clearly improved your spirit. That is,
tremendously, yes.
without turning into a selfish, mean, naughty, what we call evil, because I believe that evil doesn't exist. I think it's only selfishness. Anyway.
Yeah.
But Giles, you are expert in bringing very, very, how can I say, important points into the conversation. But we had to do a seminar here to talk about all those things. One thing you have to remember is that karma brings passion. So we fall in love to something that we need to search for our recovery in terms of karma. So for example, there was a department of a study here in Brazil called Brazilian Psycho, whatever, I forgot, it's in Sao Paulo. And they study reincarnation, right? And there's many cases of reincarnation that, for example, there was a girl, she was very afraid of planes when she was 3-4 years old. And she could remember many things about her life in Europe when the Allies were in Italy. And she died because of a bombing in a place in Italy. And now she's a pilot for the aeronautics, something like this, right?
The bones came
Now,
from Allan.
after she grew up, she decided to study to be a military and to study to be a pilot, right? So
To the
when she
Air
was
Force,
a child
okay.
at the Air Force, so the passion came at first when she was up to 3-4 years old. She was afraid of planes, afraid of everything related to planes. After the adolescence, she got in love with planes. She wanted to. Yes, see, because the karma brings you the passion. Oh, I want to do that because that's that's the field where I'm going to find my recovery, spiritually speaking. Right?
But that's a little bit dangerous.
Dangerous,
she'll
yes.
get another
Yes.
karma, and maybe she would kill someone in the plane. And
Exactly.
It's
killed by the
tricky.
plane.
That's what Giles is
careful.
saying. That's what Giles says. It's very
That's
tricky.
Yes,
And
it
that's
is.
what the doctrine of Christ comes to free you from. See, if you do that, you will be free from this kind of karmic, circle, vicious
Yeah.
circle, right?
Yeah.
That's
Una,
it.
thank you, Luis. Thank you. Una.
Yeah, I was listening to an interview this evening with Dr. Norm Shealy, who has done a lot of work. He was a famous neurosurgeon, and he went into kind of past life regressions and energetic medicine and integrated medicine. And he has uncovered about 30 past lives. In the past life immediately before this one, before he became Norm Shealy, he was a doctor in England, and he introduced narcotics into medicine in England and into medicine in general. And we all know what narcotics can and sometimes do with people. And in this lifetime, he has effectively found a way to treat people who are narcotically addicted. So there's a karmic cycle there,
Oh, look at
which I
that.
thought was really interesting.
Yeah.
Just wanted to add that.
Very nice. Yeah.
Once
thank
I had
you.
a friend, a doctor, and he operated on my mother's spine. And I just explained with him, I said, well, so you've been breaking, you were one of those guys who lived in Greece, ancient Greece, that broke people's spine and threw them to die, old people. I said, why are you saying this? Why? I said, oh, because I have this kind of dream, right? Very, very often. So, and I said, so how life is good to you? You're making lots of money operating on old people's spine, right? And you're just recovering from the karmic relations from the past. That's it.
Oh, wonderful.
But look,
wonderful
he
way.
was very passionate towards dangerous, risky sports.
Oh, look at that.
He liked mountain climbing. He liked mountain biking in the very dangerous places. And I said, look, you can run away from that. You can be merciful to yourself. You don't need to break yourself all over again just because, so you can do this in a different way. And you are in the right pathway. You are operating on people's spines, but don't need to. So he has a passion. Once he was, he passed out because he decided to go by bicycle in a very long distance under a very warm temperature. And an ambulance was driving past or something like this, and they picked him up. Otherwise, maybe he could have died, right? See, this passion for the danger he has a relation to his karma, right?
So he had to experience that suffering himself, right?
Yes.
So it was not sufficient to heal people, but yeah,
that's
it's
it.
interesting. Yeah. All right. So guys, we are now starting to study the laws one by one. And the first one is law of worship. And over here, in the first question, we have purpose of worship. And the first one is, what is worship? Any comment on that before we read the answer? So
what's the purpose of worship?
So go ahead. Hyacinth.
Yeah.
Yeah, what is worship is the question. Any comment on that? The answer is the elevation of thought towards the Creator. The soul gets closer to God through worship. Any comment? I think it's very straightforward.
Yes, I think that yes. Because I have to say again, first, sometimes that I get completely outside of myself. that it's just this complete awe and wonder.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Sometimes some people's idea of worship does not coexist with the actual thought of what God is. I'm thinking more of the really fundamentalist Christians that
Yeah.
stand there and sing all kinds of love songs and see God as a king and treat him that way. So worship can be bad or good.
Yep.
I
Yeah.
think, and I've said this a lot, that I think that the problem with us is, or a lot of people, is that you put God as a person, as a human being, when he is spirit.
Yeah.
He's not a human being.
Agree.
Well, since we're on the subject, I would like to repeat something that Satya Sai Baba said. He said, when you choose to worship a god, it all depends where you're coming from. He didn't specify early incarnations or later incarnations, but I think that's what he meant. He said, pick someone that you believe to be the most advanced person that you can think of and pray to them. You don't have to tell them that you're praying to them. That's what you do. And then when you grow, 10 years pass, 20 years pass, you find that person has weaknesses. Pick another one. This time you'll pick somebody higher. And so on. That was his advice and suggestions as to whom you should pray. And finally, presumably, you can get to pick somebody who's worthy of your adulation. But anyway, the main thing is, are we asking for help or are we giving gratitude?
Yes.
No, well, I don't know. I go by what Jesus said. He is the one that I choose to believe and follow.
All right. So moving to 650. Is worship the consequence of an intrinsic feeling or the product of medication?
Product of?
Education?
Education.
What do we think?
Education.
Education.
My book has it as exterior teaching, the product of exterior teaching.
Oh, yeah.
Which is nicely said also.
Yes.
We can see even in the non-educated people, in Indians, there is this feeling of worshiping God, right?
Mm-hmm.
Even very old civilizations and not yet civilization and tribes, there is this worship.
Yeah, that very good comment. Yeah. Art, go ahead.
The question I have is, does God want worship?
Are you sure this is 650?
Art, that's a perfectly stated thing. The total nonsense is that you go around adulating God. That is such silliness because I quite agree with you.
But we do.
Now you can give thanks, that you can have gratitude, you can state your gratitude, but to praise him, praise the highest. Oh, what a load of nonsense. As this, oh, let's praise a mountain over there for being full of rocks. It really doesn't.
He
Well, I
doesn't
shall be.
need it,
No.
but we do. We need to recognize him as our creator. We need to have this feeling that there's something bigger than us for ourselves, to be more humble, right?
Well, that's what gratitude is. Gratitude is thank you for a beautiful day. Thank you for this body. Thank you for a day with no fear and no pain. Thank you for food. Thank you for my friends that wave and smile at me. There's so many things to give thanks for on a daily basis.
Yes, but in all societies, down through the ages, they have realized that there is a power beyond them.
Mhm.
And it's not really to say, thank you that I'm me or whatever. This is something that lifts you out of yourself.
Recognition. Gloria, thank you, Heising.
Yeah, I agree with that. Maybe a better word for me, and again, language is so limiting, is acknowledgement. Acknowledgement of a higher being,
That's right.
acknowledgement of a creator.
Yes.
When I acknowledge my creator, I'm, as we read previously, I'm making that connection, and it's bringing me out of the distractions of this life and connecting me to my higher power.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah,
I like
Yes.
the word acknowledgement better than
Yes,
the word
yes.
worship.
yeah.
Something
Yeah,
like that, yes.
Exactly. Your comment is very in alignment with the one that I had in mind as well, is acknowledgement. And it's more like me, I want to do that kind of acknowledgement. And by doing so, I'm establishing a connection. Yeah,
Yeah, I think a prayer is a kind of worship, isn't it?
Can be.
Can
yeah,
be
it can be.
because we are trying to elevate our thoughts, as they said before. And I think it's important for us to be in contact with ourselves too, not only with God. But it's not an easy thing. You can just sing the songs and whatever.
Now, the problem
but-
is the worshiping have come with, I think our problem here in our studies, it's because we are trying to dig out or to sort out the pearls among so much dirt that humanity has put on religion and
Yeah.
spirituality and
They're
things.
all said, yes.
Try to, to try to sort out these little pearls with the help of these criterion. Because look, so many people worship for fear, right? They want to, to make a commerce with God. Or I'll give you this for you to give me that. Maybe something that's very bad to me, but I want, so I'll give you, I worship you because of this. So there's so many mistakes that have been made, right, in religion. And of course, we need to be careful. But I think I agree with on everything that has been said here so far in terms of worship. And there is a chapter in this book only about that.
Yeah, there is.
Because, also, what is God? And someone said, have you been just by the sea, just seen a beautiful sunset? And it's so beautiful that you are taken outside of yourself. Or you're in nature and there's just something, and that's God.
Yeah.
And I like to say, God does not have a penis, because people like to put a penis on God. He is a man.
Yes.
He's a master.
Yeah.
Yes. Maybe
Yeah.
that's
It's
why
like-
some women love worshiping more than men, right? Maybe this.
Well,
That reminds
Yeah,
me of
yes,
something
it's-
else which is worth mentioning, which is that when a great teacher lives his life and teaches, not just for 2 or 3 years, but for 40 or 50 years, as soon as he's dead, all the people around him say, we must worship this person as a god. We do not need to be the same as him because we can't be, because he's a god.
Mhm.
Mhm.
This is
And
another
therefore,
dark
that's-
trickness.
That's
I
an-
don't know. I'm not
That's an
heard of that,
excuse.
really. I must say, I haven't heard of that.
Okay, well, then something new today. I'm glad to give you some news today, Hyacinth.
Yes.
But
But
look,
That'd be interesting,
Throughout
Giles.
history,
the
it's
dark
been the same.
side has invented every kind of escapes to any kind of spiritual knowledge. That,
Yep.
for example, the thing of the grace, you know, you don't need to be, when there's a saint, a person is sanctified, that person's a special, was made like this by God. So I don't need to be the same. I don't need to follow. And I remember even Mother Teresa of Calcutta was kind of angry and said, Catholics, right? Sanctity is a duty for everyone, not only for me. She was kind of angry. Like, come on. You go, oh, no, you are the one. Chico Xavier among spiritists in Brazil like that, but Chico is Chico, you know,
Yeah.
the guy, and I have nothing to do with that, you know.
Like he was not part of the world. He was not
Yeah,
incarnated human
something
being as well.
special,
Una,
yeah.
thank you, Luis. Una?
One of the other things, coming back to what you were saying, Giles, about, you know, people putting somebody who's lived a very good life up on a pedestal. One of the other things that Norm Shealy said in his interview today is that he remembers a past life with Francis of Assisi, back in Assisi, as in St. Francis of Assisi,
Mhm.
and that St. Francis of Assisi has incarnated into our time, and they actually met each other. So if you're praying to a saint and the saint has reincarnated, which was news to me, how does that work energetically?
Well, Chico Xavier knew a lot about that, you know.
Well, there's an easy answer to that one, Una, and that is that the stories told about the so-called saint are stories, and what the truth is, well, when you meet that person in the afterlife, you can ask them. But until then, you won't know what the truth is, and much of it is nonsense, of course.
Well,
Luis.
I can tell you that Stephen says I'm not a saint, not by any means.
Yeah.
So
It's really interesting, because it blew
Yeah.
my mind. I was like, he's reincarnated. I didn't think saints reincarnated.
no, but I
There
mean,
we go
they
with the
were people.
deification of saints again. You
No,
don't.
but they were people.
Yes,
Yeah.
exactly.
Yes, exactly.
And the myth deifies them, so we don't have to be like them because they're different.
No,
That's
I mean,
what the story.
I mean, when they asked Stephen to tell about themselves, and he told them, and he was, you know, nothing special at all. He said, I remember that I didn't always do the things that my mother wanted, and I stole money from my mother and these sorts of things. He's a perfectly normal person. But that but he didn't talk about that, what he actually did, but just that this veneration of people, you give thanks for their lives and for what they have done, because people have done an awful lot for humanity. But you know, but
Yeah.
in the next life, well, this was just one of their lives.
Yeah. Thank you. Hi, thanks. Luis, you had a comment about Chico Xavier?
Yes, I remember, but I won't be able to talk a little bit more longer about this, because Chico Xavier once was asked about this. Was a person devoted to the saint. I think it was Saint Louis, right? And Chico Xavier said these spirits that really have a very high, they are very towered in terms of relating to us. They usually they have their organizations in the spiritual realm to help people, even when they are not exactly there, right, presential or face to face with people, and because they feel sometimes responsible for those entities and for those people who devote their lives and their wishes to them. To understand?
Yep.
So they feel responsible, and he gave some evidential explanation for that, but I don't remember now. It was very beautiful. It was a conversation with a woman. She said, Chico, I'm so devoted to St. Louis, and I think, is it really true? Do these people really care? And she said, oh, yes, they do. And you can even be healed by them if they are really high. Because, you know, in the system of canonizing saints in the Catholic Church, many saints were just, you know, not exactly the what they said they were. You know?
Right. Yeah. All right,
Well,
folks.
you put that very politely, Luis. You put that very politely.
I should.
And
Yeah.
I can think of the Borgia popes sanctifying each other.
Yes. Oh my goodness. That was really
Indeed.
bad. Yeah.
Look, it just
Or
strikes me
appointing a
that
12-year-old as a bishop.
there we go. Maria Jose, you don't look very happy, and you haven't said anything in this whole meeting. And it's just because Luis and I and everybody else is chatting so much, and you don't get a word in. So tell us something.
Well,
Hi,
she's late.
everybody. I just arrived a few minutes in the meeting, and I'm trying to understand what you're talking about. And I think that now I need to hear what you are talking to understand the theme. All right, thank you very much.
Thank you. So, Luis, would you please read the answer? We are very at the top of
All
the
right.
hour today.
The answer is an intrinsic sense, like the belief in God. Being aware of their weaknesses leads humankind to humbly bow before the supreme being who can protect them. By the way, Annie and Debbie, I haven't heard from them too. Right?
As well.
Yes.
I can't see anybody. I can only see Louis and Una and Anna and myself.
So,
I can
because
see
you need
everybody.
to scroll. Yeah, you need to scroll down and then you will see, I see.
You have to go up to the
Debbie.
view up there on the
Okay.
right hand corner. And then you can change side by side, speaker, standard, change the views, right? Right hand corner.
All right, folks. Any comment before we adjourn here?
Oh, no.
Well, I could just say I liked that little discussion about worship because, yeah, I think that's had a lot of wrong ways of thinking about it. So I thought this cleared it up pretty well.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you, Debbie.
Just
All right,
remember that
folks.
the church is in the afterlife full of an adoring crowd who are people who are perfectly nice and good. Otherwise, they wouldn't be there, of course. But they are misguided, and they don't know they're dead, and they're waiting for the last judgment. And as long as it doesn't happen, they can't see you. The social workers turn up and say, "Hey, I'm here in front of you. Pay attention." That's it.
All right.
Yeah.
Any other question before we close? Or
Ana
comment?
Castro, you are wonderful, and thank you very much. You're beautiful, and you're about 1 year older than your son, your eldest son.
I
And
wish.
if anybody asks you how you manage that, say it's a mystery.
Yeah.
I wish. Yeah, anyway, thank you, guys. And we'll talk then in 7 days from now.
Thank you. Bye, guys.
Thank you.
Okay, right.
Have a good
Nice to see you all
Bye-bye.
again.
Bye-bye.
Have a nice weekend.
You too.
Now